We have had a very long and prosperous economic history spanning over more than 4,000, 5,000 years, for which we have some details now. We know that in Mahabharata, corporate form of organization was mentioned. In those days, corporates were called as Srini, S-R-E-N-I. In Rig Veda, partnership forms of organizations were mentioned. Pani, P-A-N-I. Pani was a common partnership form of organization that existed thousands of years ago. In India, there are more than 63 million small businesses, 6.3 crore as per official data itself. It is the small businesses that provide employment to about 125 million people, 12.5 crore people, the largest number in the entire country. So once again, I'm happy to be here at the Indus University Center for Indic Studies, and I'm very happy that the way in which the center and the Indus University have been growing. So congratulations to Dr. Ram Sharma and the entire team for the kind of work that you are doing here. Today now I'm here to talk on decolonizing Indian management. First of all, what is decolonization? For a long time since colonization, maybe several decades, we are being largely, to a very large extent, influenced by the outside alien thoughts, experiments, experiences, approaches, theories for a very long time. If we want to understand the realities of a society, of a country, then we have to understand it from the functioning field perspectives. Unfortunately, in the field of management, like several other fields, most of the other fields, we look at things only from the outsiders' perspectives. So first of all, this decolonization is very, very important. Why we have to do it? Because Bharat, India is an ancient civilization. And we have a very long history of performance, superior performance in diverse fields. So we have had functioning systems. And now, if we want to contribute to the development of India, which we have to do as the educated sections of our society, first of all, we have to understand what is happening around us. And this is not possible now with the kind of Western management theories that are taught to us in classrooms, that are being discussed in conferences. So it is high time that we start doing this. So that is the reason why this decolonization is necessary. Now, India is a unique country with a very long history and special characteristics. The approaches, the theories of the West are not exactly suitable here. To give you an overall idea, West is largely individualistic. India is family oriented. You take a small example. India saves, our families, our parents save a lot of money. But the West takes pride in spending. In fact, all the economists have been urging people to spend money. I remember about 10 years back, there was an article in the famous The Economist magazine with the title Spend, Spend, Spend. So they ask their people to spend, but our elders, our grandparents, our parents to advise us to spend less. In fact, spending more, spending beyond a limit is considered a sin here. So this is the basic difference. In our own Indian households, people live for others. Elders live for us, sacrificing their enjoyments, sacrificing their pleasure, comforts. But in most of the Western households, people live for themselves, for their own pleasures and enjoyment. So these are the basic differences. Hence, we need to have a proper understanding of the functioning systems. Culture plays a very important role in the management aspects. But in Indian economic systems, business systems, management systems, while I speak from the theoretical point of view, we don't give even a small place to culture. This is the big issue now. So, if we want to understand the realities and contribute as citizens of this great country, we have to have this decolonization. If we take Indian management systems, we have had a very long and prosperous economic history spanning over more than 4,000, 5,000 years, for which we have some details now. But for the last 2,000 years, we have economic details, GDP details, growth rate details, on the basis of studies taken by this Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So our history, economic history, business history tells us that we remained as the most powerful nation for several centuries together, for thousands of years. We all know OECD study says that during the beginning of the common era, 2022 years back, our share of global GDP was 32.9%, one third. So we were the most richest country in the world. If we want to define it in today's terms, we were the superpower in those days. Superpower. And as a result, we remained as the most powerful nation on the earth. And our achievements were not confined to one or two fields. It was in diverse fields, from business and economics to maths, medicine, architecture. You take any field, we were superior performers. What is the reason for it? We must have had superior management systems in those days. Because without superior system, we might not have achieved that position. Contributing significantly in diverse fields and remaining as the most powerful economic power on earth. Not possible without strong management systems. If we take from the business point of view, we get some details about the earlier periods. Of course, 4,000, 5,000 years back, we don't have all details. We know that in Mahabharata, corporate form of organization was mentioned. In those days, corporates were called as Srini, S-R-E-N-I. So corporate form of organization was mentioned. In Rig Veda, partnership forms of organizations were mentioned. Pani, P-A-N-I, Pani was a common partnership form of organization that existed thousands of years ago, continued to exist till almost 300, 200 years back. So we had different types of business organizations, corporate organizations, partnership organizations. In fact, there were many types of partnership organizations. So depending upon the requirements, situation, people had organized themselves into different types of organizations. Similarly, there were single man business, women business, sole proprietorship organizations. I remember in the olden days while studying in the ancient business history, there were persons who were having businessmen under him, thousands of businessmen, 4,000 businessmen under one person. So different types of business organizations were there in those days. Now in the American universities, I remember in one particular university, Yale University, there was a professor by name Vikramaditya Khanna. He was engaged earlier in comparing the modern US corporate form of organization and the ancient Indian Srini form of organization. And after studying in detail the ancient Srini form of organization, he wrote a beautiful article in which he said the ancient Indian corporate form of organization was much superior to the present modern US corporate forms. All of us know the modern corporate form of organization, particularly of the US variety, had its own limits. CEOs, COOs, CFOs, they amass wealth at the cost of the ordinary workers. So, ancient form of Indian corporate organization was much superior in those days. So there was perfection in everything that we were doing, even in businesses, even in economic matters. This is the point that we have to understand. And we were pioneers in many activities. So from textiles to shipbuilding, we were the pioneers. As a result, we remained as the topmost exporters for several centuries continuously in certain fields like textiles. So this was our business experience. All these would not have been possible without the native Indian or Bharatiya management systems. Management systems. And no business management would be complete, economic management would be complete if the man or women, that man management is not perfect. So we have had systems for making men perfect physically, mentally, spiritually. So those systems were also available. And our management systems were not confined to individuals, businesses, and economics alone. Our management systems extended to society, state, governance models. We have had highly superior governance models throughout the history, at least for the last 3,000 years. People like me have studied superior social governance models, democratic models. Similarly, social management systems we have had. So, as a result, I can say that during the ancient periods in India, we have highly performing superior management systems. And these systems underwent difficulties over the last few centuries, particularly under the British period. They systematically targeted the Indian systems. So these management systems, all of us know, they interfered in different kinds of activities, whether it was business, economics, social activities, governance systems, or agricultural systems. They all interfered and then started disturbing, destroying, destabilizing our systems. All of us know India remained as a superior educational power for several hundreds of years. But 1835, Macaulay System was introduced, and before that they undertake surveys, and the surveys repeatedly mentioned that India was the most literate nation in the world. And one report said at that time, if I remember right, 1820s, 97% of the Indians were literate. And nowhere in the world such kind of education was available. The country that was ruling us, Britain, in their country, education was not available to common people. It was given only to elite sections. That too, school education only on Saturdays and Sundays. No education in mathematics, science, only Bible. So this was the system there. But here, education was widely prevalent. Lakhs and lakhs of schools across the state across the country. So this was the position. They systematically destroyed it. As a result, within a period of 60 plus years, 6 decades, entire native system was destroyed. When Will Durant came here and studied India in 1891, he said the literacy rate was just 9%, 6% for girl students. Otherwise, girls and boys were giving completely free education up to university level or even beyond that. But introduction of the alien system destroyed our education within a period of just 60 years. And this kind of destruction was there in every field. I remember in the 19th century, when the Britishers came here, they thought they were superior in every field of every field. So they wanted to improve the agricultural system in India. They invited one of the best known European agricultural scientists by name Albert Howard. So he came here. He was asked to tour the country and give a report to the government to improve the functioning of the agricultural systems, agricultural management systems. That report is a very beautiful report. If time permits, you read it. And in the report, he said, I have been observing Indian farmers over the last several uh, weeks, and I understand that the Indian farmers are professors themselves, and I don't have anything to offer. I have many things, everything to learn from them. This is what he said. I have never seen a country that is engaged in agriculture continuously over the last 2000 years, doing agriculture in the same land without without the usage of manures, without the usage of pesticides. So this is what he said. And many of the people who came here, Dharampal has written a very beautiful book, Science and Technology in the 18th century. In that book, he mentioned even in the 18th century, how Britishers who came here, who was working here, they stole our own practices. For example, when they were in Tamil Nadu, Alexander Walker, one British official, Major General Alexander Walker, he noticed the ordinary grandmothers using these vaccines for smallpoxes. No medicine available in the West. So he took it there after his tenure here and gave it to a scientist. Then they became the patent holders of the smallpox medicine. So superior systems were available here, but they destroyed it systematically. And this is the point that we have to understand. So I just gave two examples, education and agriculture. The same thing in other fields also, business, economics, etc. So we have had superior management systems in diverse fields, various fields. They were destroyed. Not only that, this kind of education that they introduced, colonial education, distanced Indians from the realities. This is the point that we have to understand now. So since then, 1835, we are made to be different from the rest of the society. Our own parents, our own families, our own circles of relatives, acquaintances, friends. So this is what uh, the British education, Macaulay education, has made us to believe. So the influence of this Western colonial education has made us, in a way, aliens in our own society. But they stole our techniques, our systems, and used it in their countries. While Macaulay destroyed the Indian education system, they started implementing our systems in their country, Britain. It's detailed in Dharampal's book as to how they did it. And Western influence continued for decades, unfortunately, even after independence. This is the point that we have to understand. So as a result, it is the Western theories, Western textbooks, in fact, Western case studies, Western curriculum and approaches that are given primary position in different subjects, particularly in the field of management. Our native knowledge systems and successful approaches are usually ignored and very often neglected. So this is the point that we have to understand. And instead, in our own curriculum, the failed theories of the West are being taught even today. I am a finance teacher. When I go to the classroom, I teach the finance models, finance theories, American theories largely to the student. I always give this example, an interesting example. In the 1980s, the Nobel Prizes in economics were always continuously given to management professors, particularly finance professors. So in 1997, two professors, in fact, they chose three, one of them already died, so he was given posthumously. Two professors got Nobel Prize for a model called Black-Scholes model. If you go to the website, you can see even now, Black-Scholes model. So they got the prize, but unlike their predecessors who got Nobel Prize money and continued to teach, these two people thought, now we have so much money with us. Why should we go and teach in the classroom for a fixed salary? Because our theory, our model is being used by several others in the market, financial market throughout the world. So they are making so much money, millions of dollars. Why should we go and teach in the classroom for fixed salaries? They resigned their jobs. At that time, there was a company promoted by management professors and economists. That name of the company was LTCM, Long Term Capital Management. A first time company promoted by management professors and economists. These two Nobel laureates joined that company as full-time advisors. Full-time advisors. So there was a huge expectation in the market. Company promoted by management professors and economists, and two Nobel laureates are going to advise on a full-time basis. Several people invested their hard-earned savings in the company. And I remember some of the chief executives of other companies resigning their positions to join this company at junior levels. This was the position. 1998, the results came. The results for that company, LTCM, came. The results showed that the company had lost several times of their investment. Wall Street Journal, Wall Street Index, which is the index used to measure the performance of the stock market, nosedived. It was going down. The Federal Reserve Bank, that is the Central Bank of India, America, had to intervene, buy the securities to stop the stock market from falling. That was the position. Two Nobel laureates, they wanted to experiment their theory, their model, but they failed. They failed. They could not um, uh, benefit out of their own theory, earn money out of their own theory. Again, so after losing their money, they almost became paupers. Many of the people who had invested money, all those who had invested money, they lost their investment. These two people finally, they went back to teaching. Even today, we are teaching this Black-Scholes model everywhere in India, in all classrooms, finance classrooms, wherever MBA students are taught. This is one theory that we discuss in the classroom. Now, how can we discuss a failed theory invented by the authors themselves? Now we are teaching that theory continuously to the students, wasting the time of our students. And it is not just in finance and economics, in several other subjects, the same thing continues. There is a theory in sociology called Max Weber theory. In the first year itself, first class, particularly for postgraduate students, they teach this Max Weber's sociological theory. It was written in 1905. Max Weber was a European. And that theory said India and China can never progress in life because they follow the Hindu Buddhist practices which emphasize on karma and rebirth. So these societies will never progress. Only countries with Protestant ethics will economically prosper. But the reverse has been happening over the last several decades, in spite of which we teach them. So this is the kind of theories or the models that we teach in management classes today. So anything foreign is considered good, modern. Anything Indian is considered backward, not suitable. This is the position. And the influence of Western management schools are disproportionately high. The influence of Western management experts, authors, are disproportionately high. Some of you youngsters may be knowing that in 1960s, when we introduced these business schools in India, IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Calcutta, you know, two foreign business schools, Harvard University, Harvard Business School, and Sloan School of Business, MIT, were their mentors. And for a long time, till recently, even today to an extent, the foreign professors were coming and teaching here, nothing wrong. But only thing is they teach only the Western theories. And the Western trained Indian professors, they were teaching here without realizing the fundamentals that are working here. This is the point. We invite everybody, let them share their experiences. It is good. We are willing to learn from everyone. But the only problem is that, you know, they do teach only their experiences, underlining that only the Western models, Western theories, Western approaches are suitable for India. This is the biggest problem. So as a result, we fail and refuse to notice what is happening today, what is happening around us economically, in the business sector, in all other sectors. So we fail to notice even what is happening in front of us. I would go to the extent of even saying that the outside models have blinded our eyes. We refuse to believe and accept, as I said, what we see in front of us. You know, this OECD results study was published in 2001. But even till date, there are many universities, many colleges that don't teach this to the students. You know, this is one of the important, very important studies that have happened in the during the last 200 years. The study says that India remained as the most sustainable power continuously for at least 17, 18 centuries. Very important development, because all these years colonial educations were teaching us that there was nothing from India, nothing from China, everything came from Europe. This was the belief. But their own study emphasized that India remained as the superpower for at least some 17 to 18 centuries. We don't discuss it in classrooms. This is due to the colonial effect. But what is happening at the ground level? This we have to understand. If we see the functioning systems of India, in fact, many of the systems we call it as performing systems. They are performing very successfully. The functioning systems are something completely different from the systems that we discuss in classrooms, from the systems that we uh, teach in universities and colleges. I will take just 3-4 aspects and emphasize this so that you will understand the functioning systems of India. You take financial management, for example. Finance is the lifeblood of business. Without finance, nothing happens. So if you take the financial aspects, of course, we all teach and study the Western financial management theories. There are many, many theories. But what is happening at the ground level? In India, there is corporate sector, there is non-corporate sector, small businesses, partnership firms of organization, then other varieties of organizations like cooperatives, etc. This non-corporate form of organizations contribute almost 60 to 65% of India's income today. Almost two-thirds of India's GDP is contributed by this non-corporate sector. They are all family-based sectors promoted by the less educated, less privileged sections of the society largely. So it is they who manage and run this sector. And how do they manage finance? If we go and see them, they manage finance on their own, at least till recently. In the last 5-6 years, there are many developments like Mudra Bank, there are many other developments. But till recently, and even today to an extent, the requirements of finance were largely met by the promoters themselves through their own money, funds collected from their own friends and relatives, or local financiers. This was the system. So their connections with banks and financial institutions were less, at least some 6-7 years, 5-6 years back. They were very less, in single digit, maybe 5%, 7%, 8%, 9%. But the way people mobilized funds, in spite of all the difficulties that they had, is something enormous that we have to see. People sell their assets. The family members, particularly mothers and wives, sell their jewelry, contribute funds to the towards the initial capital of enterprises promoted by sons, husbands, or their own family members. This is how it has been happening. I remember in some of the industrial and business centers of India, Tirupur is a very well-known industrial business cluster in India. 40% of India's knitwear exports go from there. There were a particular group of people, a community called Gounders. They were saving when a London Business School professor came and studied them. It was reported that they were saving about 85% of their income for business towards initial capital and then for business expansion. I remember having conducted a study here between 2001 and 5 among the diamond exporters of Ahmedabad and Surat. In our study, we noticed that almost 46% of diamond exporters received more than 30% of their initial capital from their relatives. We had a meeting in Rajkot organized by the Rajkot Chamber of Commerce. When we were discussing with them, many of them rose and said, "Sir, we came to Ahmedabad to learn the business, and after learning the business for few years, 4 years, 5 years, etc., we go back to our villages and inform our villagers, kinship, friends and relatives that we are going to set up our own small unit. Then people on their own, they come and give funds. On their own, they come and give funds. Most of the time, we don't pay interest. Of course, we repay the capital after a few years, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We repay the capital, but they don't demand interest from us. And this is how our people have been mobilizing funds. Mobilizing funds. So here, social capital plays a very important role in India. Whereas the Western countries are highly individualistic. I mentioned it earlier. Here, even today, we are largely family oriented. So, this social capital plays a very important role in a country like ours. I remember in World Development Report 2001, World Development Report is published by World Bank. They particularly mentioned as to how the Tirupur Hosiery Center was able to make products, their own bunions and innerwears, at the cheapest cost. These people go and sell their products in the international market at a very cheap cost. That is their advantage, competitive advantage. So two professors from America, they came down to India, Tirupur, and then they studied it. They interacted with me also, and later they gave a report which was briefly mentioned in the World Development Report 2001. They studied the financing aspects of financing methods of Tirupur exporters and came to understand that in Tirupur, at least for the initial funds, as far as the export orders are concerned, whenever they get an export order, then they have to execute the order within 2 months, 3 months, 45 days. So their time period is less. So what they do, of course, they go to banks and financial institutions. It takes 2 days, 3 days because they have to submit their documents, etc. But before that, the initial funds that they require, it could be 25 lakhs or 30 lakhs or 50 lakhs. They may not be able to go and get the bank from the bank or financial institution immediately. They contact their friend, their relatives, ask them to give funds. Funds come to them for which they don't pay any cost. So the report said, as a result, for at least a significant amount of funds required by the exporters, the interest charges are almost nil, because our own friends and relatives, they don't charge. Why? Because in any exporting center, after 6 months, after 1 year, when your neighbor, when your friend, when your relative faces the same situation, you give funds to them. So as a result, the cost of capital is less, and as a result, the cost of price they fix is reduced, and because of it, they are able to sell it at the cheap rate in the international market. So they concluded it is the social capital that exists in India. It is the close relationships that exist in India among friends and relatives that help Indian businesses to grow. So this is an important aspect. Even if you look at the corporates, at the corporate level, which we have studied in detail, if I come to the class and teach you the syllabus, then I tell you, as far as corporate financing systems are concerned, there are some standard ratios. Debt equity ratio, this should be the ratio. For equity funds and reserve funds, you maintain this. This is enough. This is what the standard Western approaches teach us. But what is happening at the ground level in India? Even if you take corporates, corporates are considered to be influenced by the Western models, Western managers, because most corporates are, big corporates are managed by MBAs from foreign countries, from big institutions. But when they go and practice, their practice is somewhat different. Because their practice is influenced by the cultural orientations. And most of the promoters of Indian units, at least till recently, were from the ordinary sections of the society. So culture plays a very important role in practical terms, even though we don't discuss it in the classrooms. So as a result, if you see, always the role of equity financing, always the role of internal reserves are much more in Indian corporates. You can take any American company or a European company, compare own funds, equity and reserves with the debt capital. Similarly, you take any Indian company and compare it, surely you will see more internal funds, more reserves in India than in any foreign company, particularly the Western companies. And the kind of reserves that we have compared to equity capital, it will be 50 times more, 100 times more in many of the companies. But in the West, if you see, normally if equity is, let us say, $10 million, then they may maintain $10 million as reserves. But here it is not like that. 100 times, 200 times. I remember one company from Tamil Nadu Mercantile Bank, which was one of Asia's largest profit-making units. Its capital till 2016 was just 25 lakhs, but its reserves were above 200 crores. About 200 crores. We made a calculation in those days, assuming that the company would be incurring losses from this year, at least for another 700, 800 years, the company still will be able to continue because they were having so much reserve. So this is India. This is India. If you take fund management, our fund management systems are completely different from the way the Western theories teach us, or from the way the Western companies manage their systems. This is the point that we have to understand. You take HR management, human relations management. This is again a very important aspect of any business. The Western theories ask us, the owners, professional managers, to be human to the other employees. But here in India, majority of the companies, most of the business enterprises, when they deal with their employees, they deal with them as their own brothers, sisters. This we have noticed it and written about it in detail also. Of course, there are several examples in Gujarat itself. I visit since the last 22 years. I visit frequently to Surat to take up study, to interact with our people. Some of you may be knowing there is a very famous businessman, Sri Savji Dolakia, is the chairman of Hari Krishna Exports. He was awarded Padma Shri also to 2022. He had studied only up to 4th standard. Now his turnover is more than $38 billion. $38 billion. Every year during Diwali, we get to know about him. Every year during Diwali. In 2018, he gifted his employees with 600 cars, apart from jewelry and other items. And I have long list how much he gave in 2015, 16, etc. In 2014, he gave 250 apartments, apart from 491 cars. In 2016, he gave 400 houses and 1,260 cars. He has more than 6,000 employees in his group of companies, and he is exporting to 50 different countries. So the way our Indian owners, our Indian executives treat our employees, in most cases, there could be exceptions. In majority of the cases, particularly at the non-corporate sector level, in most of the cases, something completely different. There was a chairman and managing director in Tamil Nadu when we were conducting our studies some 15, 20 years back with regard to this HR management. He was having 11 textile mills. 11 textile mills. The number of employees in his group of companies were more than 10,000. Then and there, in those days, there were communists in those days, but now their influence is very less. In the 15 years back, they used to compel the employees go for a strike. So strikes were happening then and there. But in this particular group of companies, there have been never a strike since its inception. So we went and interviewed them. We spent a day with him. We asked him, sir, what is the reason for your success? Said, I have 10,200 employees or so. I know the name of each and every person. I attend, yes, this is what he said. I attend to their family functions like a family member, and whenever there are any unfortunate incidents in their families like deaths, etc., I would be the first person to go and remind them. I take every day, I take lunch with them. So as a result, I am not just an owner, I am their elder brother. This is what he said. As a result, there is no reason for employees to go on strike. So we have been observing this in several places. So our HR management functioning systems are something different from the way Westerners do. We all know whenever a new chief executive takes over in a Western company, his first job is to retrench at least some 500, 1000 employees. But his package will be more, but he would be removing them. This is the kind of management practice that they adopt. But in India, the functioning systems are something different. Then one important aspect that I have to mention to you here, youngsters, is that these resources, whether it is natural resources or resources like electricity, these are very precious. We should not waste it, because if we waste it, then we are depriving the benefit to some other person, some others. So management of resources is very, very important everywhere. All of us know, due to lack of resources, people are suffering in different parts of the world. If you take in Indian business enterprises, I have observed, particularly at the non-corporate level, to an extent at the corporate level also, the management of resources are something unique that we have to understand. If we take the non-corporate sector, coming under the family system, whether it is partnership firms or small businesses. When I say small business, we have to understand in India, there are more than 63 million small businesses, 6.3 crore as per official data itself. It is the small businesses that provide employment to about 125 million people, 12.5 crore people, the largest number in the entire country. It is they who provide employment to more than 93, 94% of the workforce in India. This we have to remember. So they play the most dominant role here. So as far as the non-corporate sector is concerned, they use lesser resources, less resources. I have seen even in government data that today there are business enterprises that do not even use electricity. So without electricity, sizable number of units, enterprises are functioning now. Functioning now. And if you see in terms of capital employed, the non-corporate units, the smaller business enterprises, they give maximum employment. So use of lesser funds, but providing more employment. And this is an important lesson that we have to learn. In 2010, two very important influential people of those days, one management expert by name Prahalad, he is no more now. He was in Harvard University as a professor. He is from India, Tamil Nadu. And another scientist by name Mashelkar, Dr. Mashelkar, who was the Director General of CSIR, Center of CSIR, Government Research Center, Industrial Research Center. Both of them, they wrote an article in the Harvard Business Review in 2001. In that article, they mentioned the innovations that were taking place across the country, particularly the developing countries. And in that article, they took some 5 examples from India, like Maruti car, Bharati Airtel, etc. And then they concluded it is only in India, among the emerging economies, that these frugal innovations are taking place. So spending less, but innovating. We must have heard the usage of the word jugaad, jugaad, jugaad. So jugaad is, improvising or innovating things with least use of resources, that too local resources. So this is an Indian way of Indian approach to our management systems. So our people do not wait for companies to come up with different products. They, with the available resources, they attempt to do something on their own, and almost most of the time they succeed and end up doing it. So this is another aspect that we have to study. And this is functioning here in India, and there are several examples for it. I will give one example from the hospital industry. There was a study, very popular study done by Prahalad, management expert. It is mentioned in his book, Bottom of the Pyramid. In that book, he says in America, if somebody wants to go for an eye surgery, then it used to cost in those days anywhere between $3,000 and $3,500. But in India, he took one company from Tamil Nadu, Arvind Hospitals. Arvind Hospitals. The average eye surgery, cataract surgery cost just $50. So in America, which we considered as the scientifically, medically, technologically advanced country, people spend more than 60 to 70 times of their of the amount that they spend here in India. For all this, that company charges only 60% of its patients, always 40% patients free service. 60% only percent of the patients only are charged. And in spite of it, the return on capital employed in that company was 120 to 130%. And that company was completely free of debt. And this is how our management systems happen here. Usage of lesser resources, but maximum benefit. So the functioning systems of India, I've told you initially, first about the financial aspect, second HR aspect, now management of resources, which is very important for any country. Our ways are superior. And Indians by nature have enormous business sense, management sense. I would go to the extent of saying business wisdom, the ordinary Indians of India. Enormous business wisdom, enormous management wisdom they have. So they develop unique systems. This we have seen across the country. They have developed their own systems. When in southern Tamil Nadu, when a particular section of the society, they are from agricultural community. Agriculture means their lands were not giving that kind of returns that they required, because not so fertile lands, and largely they were all toddy tree climbers. They are from a community called Nadars. They wanted to enter into business, they did not have money, so they devised a system called Mahamai. Mahamai. They, wherever they are settled and in all their villages, they assemble, they go to the deity, Amman deity, lady deity is their main deity. So they go there, they take a vow, saying that every month I will be contributing 1 paise in those days, or 2 paise of every 1 rupee that I earn. This is how it started. So as a result, the huge amounts of funds were coming. They started giving this to the budding entrepreneurs. And as a result, in southern Tamil Nadu, they are the largest trading community today. They own at least around 65% of all the grocery shops that are operating in Tamil Nadu. Wherever Tamilians are there, whether in Mumbai or Ahmedabad or Delhi, they will have their grocery shops. And it is they who promoted the Tamil Nadu Mercantile Bank, promoted not by any IIM graduate, the very ordinary people of this country without much educational backgrounds, lesser financial backgrounds, and it is they who promoted. And it is they who promoted centers like Sivakasi, Virudhunagar. Sivakasi contributes even today some 70 to 80% of the crackers that are burst during Diwali. Even when Jawaharlal Nehru was there as Prime Minister, he called it as a mini Japan that employs even today some 5 lakh people. And the kind of expansion that has taken place there, they started with cracker manufacturing, then they went into match industry because related, then packaging industry. And in all these businesses, they succeeded. And no IIM, no Institute of Management went and advised them that now you are in cracker business, you expanded to match industry. They succeeded on their own because they have this business wisdom as such. So as a result, what is the reason for this? They developed their own unique financing model based on the kind of relationship that they have. And this we see across the country. And there are certain corporates which based on our cultural ways of life, they design their even pay packages. I have written about a particular company from Coimbatore called Habasit Icoca, even though the name of the company sounds foreign, completely local company only. They had a system, introduced a system whereby if an employee, male employee, lives with his parents, father and mother, then additional monthly salary was given to him. Additional monthly salary was given to him. Next point is more important. If female employee lives with her in-laws, mother-in-law, father-in-law, then twice the additional salary given to the male employee given to. Can you believe? So promotion of family values by corporates in India, and we have such kind of management systems operating across the country even today. In fact, when I wrote about it, I remember Jain Irrigation's chairman of those days, he is no more now, Senior Jain, wanted to see me. When he came down to Coimbatore, we met, and he said, I am going to introduce this in all my companies, Jain Irrigation System, some 12 years back. So this is how our own business enterprises in different parts of the country, they have devised their own management systems, not just to attract employees, but to keep the family values, traditional values alive. I have noticed this in many places. I don't have time, otherwise I would have given you more examples. So this is how we have been functioning. We are functioning across the country today. But what do we teach at classrooms? None of these models, none of these systems. We teach the Western theories, whether it is HR or finance or anything. We teach only the Western theories. So this is the problem today. But now there is a development happening. If you see now in the last particularly 10-15 years, there are Western management schools, universities that are coming here and studying our management systems. Not many, but they have started. I was told that some 2 universities, they had already set up their India centers some 2 years back. Now many more will be coming as UGC has announced its decision to welcome many foreign universities. So as a result, now they have started to come and provide information to us about the functioning systems of India. This is the point that we have to understand. So from Dabbawalas to Kumbh Mela and this Taj Hotel's attack, who did the case studies? It is the Western universities, and they are giving it to us. They are teaching us. Dabbawalas became popular because some foreign university came and studied about it. Similarly, Kumbh Mela, I remember Harvard University sent it 7 colleges, Harvard Medical College, Technological College, and it is they who studied, not any Indian management university, any Indian management school. That's a huge event. We have to See to believe it. Crores of people assembled during a period of 45-50 days. Nowhere in the world it happens. And no untoward incident. No invitation to them. Nobody extends an invitation. They see Panchanga, go there, take bath, pray Lord, remain there for 1 or 2 days, go back. It has been happening for several centuries together. But none of us bothered to study about it. That's an important, very important case study for social management by the society. How Indian society manages so much of crowd, many people. Harvard has come and studied, not we. When there was attack by the terrorists on these Taj hotels, some of the youngsters may not be knowing, there were several guests from foreign countries in that hotel. In fact, I visited the hotel after a few months. So there were many foreign guests. The employees were there. In any eventuality, whenever, let us say, there is a fire, bomb attack, then naturally the tendency of a person would be to go out and escape to save his or her life. That is the natural tendency. And the hotel employees, they know the escape routes. The guests may not know. We go and stay in a particular hotel for 2 days, 1 day, 3 days, we don't know, but they know. In that particular instant, they noticed that the hotel employees did not go out. None of them wanted to escape. Instead, they wanted to help their guests. And in the process, if I remember right, 2 or 3 lost their lives. But in spite of it, they were helping the guests to escape, and several of them escaped. So this is very normal in our situation, because Aditi Devo Baba is part of our life. But none of us bothered to study. A foreign university, management school, they came and studied this, and they gave the title for this case study as Aditi Devo Baba. So we fail to ignore, we fail to notice what is happening in front of us, because colonial mindset, but the outsiders coming and taking up case studies and giving it to us. Now we begin to study. This has to reverse. I remember another important study by Wharton School professors led by Peter Capelli and 3 or 4 others. They came to India in 2000, during 2009-10, because since 2000 in the Western business world, corporate world, lot of problems are happening. The chief executives, particularly, people are not happy with the top executives, because they are making money at the cost of ordinary employees and all. So there were suspicions, even criticisms raised against the top executives. Their leadership systems were shaking. Even today they face this problem. But they noticed in India no such serious problems. Of course, here and there could be 1 or 2. But to a large extent, no such problem was there. So they came down to India, took up 101 top companies, both public sector and private sector, went to the top chief executives, interviewed them. In fact, they interviewed 98 of them. And then they wrote an article. Later it came out in the form of a book also. The title of that article was Leadership Lessons from India. Leadership Lessons from India. And they noted in their article that in India, we have distinctive Indian models, leadership models operating here. So now the foreigners are coming here and telling us that you have unique models. Surely it is time for us to study about them. It is time for us to study. So my appeal to all of you youngsters here, young faculty members here, is that first we have to decolonize our minds. We have to understand that, of course, we have had a very long history of management techniques, systems. Even today, contemporary times, We have superior management systems in front of us. This is the point that I want to say. 75 years back at the time of independence, we were a poor country. 45% of the people were living below poverty line. 31 years was the average age of life in 1947. 31 years. But today, what is the position? If you take in terms of purchasing power parity terms, we are the third largest economy in the world with the GDP of $11.75 trillion. Third largest. And some 10 to 12 years back, London Business School had estimated that India had the highest number of entrepreneurs in the world, 85 million, 8.5 crore. And we are the most potential economy today. If you see the IMF briefings, reports over the last 6-7 months, 1 year, they have been repeatedly saying in the dark global economic environment, there is a bright spot, and that is India. They use this word bright spot often to denote India. So this is what is happening now. India's growth rate now, in spite of all difficulties, around 7%. You see America less than 2%. At the overall global growth rate around 3%. So we are emerging as a powerful nation in spite of all these difficulties. Why? Because of the native systems, management systems, economic systems, functioning systems, and all this is due to our civilizational and cultural backgrounds. Here, family is the main important source, with women power, Nari Shakti, playing the dominant role. We fail to notice it, but the role that women plays at the family level, in turn, when a person takes economic decisions, business decisions, they play a very, very vital role. This we don't know, we fail to notice it. But this is the reason for our success. So first of all, we have to decolonize our minds and then believe that there are functioning systems here. It is because of these systems that we have emerged today as an important economic power. In spite of confusions and contradictions at the policy making level, we are today where we are because of our native systems. This we have to understand. This is what all our studies show, whether it is Agra or Ludhiana or Rajkot or Sivakasi or Belgaum, across the country, this is the. So we have functioning systems in front of us. So now it is time for us to decolonize our minds. We have to question the Western theories, Western models. I remember one famous sentence by S.K. Chakraborty, the Dean of Indian Management, IIM Calcutta. He was a professor earlier. He raised a question a few years back. Have we Indian ever thought of challenging the West's wholesale transmission to our students? So they have been transmitting their approaches, their beliefs. Now it is time for us to question and develop our own models. In fact, models are already there, functioning. We have to write theories about it. We have to begin doing it. This is the right time. India is emerging after 2 centuries of lying low due to various reasons. Now Bharat is emerging as a global power. So our Prime Minister called this as Amrut Kal. We are on the way to being a Vishwa Guru. That is going to happen because we have enormous strengths at the local levels. It is time for the management students, for the universities, first to decolonize our minds and then understand the realities, functioning realities, appreciate them, begin to contribute. I'm not saying everything is perfect here, but most of the things are near perfect. Some of the things are highly perfect. It is time for us as the citizens of this proud country to contribute towards its progress, further development. And it will happen only when we do this, begin to study India from the realistic perspectives and then start contributing to it. So this is what we have to do, and it is high time that we realize this and start doing this. I strongly believe that the youth of the country, compared to people like us who studied in university some 30 years back, they are more aware of the developments, they are more aware of the greatness of this country. So you are going to be dominating this scene at least for the next 30-40 years. So it is your time, you start doing it, and certainly we see a very bright future for India. Thank you very much.